And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. On today's episode, I just want to talk about a couple things. If you guys have any questions, ask them now in the chat because I want to interact with the chat a little bit because there's just a few things that finally happened. If you guys are not new to this channel, there's actually a few things that happen. One, I was waiting for a lot of PSA returns to come back to me because I have Charlotte Collecticon 2 weeks from now, and I was really hoping on some of these submissions to come back to me. Today, 3 submissions shipped to me all at one time, and the way I was notified was by my credit card for fraud protection because all 3 of those charges all hit at the same time, all from PSA, and I got the text, and I'm pretty hesitant when I see oh, there's activity going on in your credit card. I'm like, that's probably a spam text, and then I look at the last 4 digits, and I'm like, okay. That seems pretty weird. So then I log on to my credit card and it's like, a huge fraud protection thing. You got to click on it and prove the charges. So 3 of my 4 submissions from PSA all shipped today, which is great. It's the first time I've ever, so one of my submissions was 70 cards. It's the first time I've ever submitted 70 cards and got 70 PSA 10s. Yes, you heard that number correct. 70 out of 70 PSA 10s. So that was an all-time record for me for that. And then I'm just waiting on one more submission, 65 card submission. It's the one I'm really, really hoping for. It has some cards I think are going to be really liquid cards that I can move really easy at Charlotte Collecticon. And then the other submission was 21 cards. That one was 15 out of 21 cards hit the PSA 10. So I had 6 of those didn't. But out of the 6 that didn't hit the PSA 10, 5 of the 6 were PSA 9s. One of them was PSA 8, so that was great. And now, this is the one I'm excited for. My other submission, which was 35 cards, was a lot of just random stuff. I had mentioned that submission being a lot of personal collection items, things that I wasn't going to sell. But one of those cards has been a holy grail of mine that I've been chasing now for closer to a decade than further away from a decade. And that submission had a PR1 Shadowless Raichu. If you are new to this channel, you might not know this, but one of my goals in this and one of my personal collections is I'm trying to complete a master set for base set Raichu in PSA 1 and all subgrades in between. So 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, all the way up to 10. Obviously, PSA does not have a 9.5, so that will either be like a CGC 9.5 or a Beckett 9.5, but that's my goal, is to complete that entire 1 through 10 set. And one of the cards that I have never been able to personally grade myself is a PR1 Raichu. And trust me, I have FOMO'd into almost buying that card. Every single PR1 that has ever shown up, I have almost FOMO'd into buying it. But I was always, in my heart of hearts, I was like, I can grade a 1. I know I can do it. You think it's easy. It's not. Right there, that's a Shadowless 2. At the time, that was the lowest grade I ever received, was a 2. I have more 5s, more 6s in freaking Raichus than anybody. Hold on, I'll show you. So, if you guys don't really understand how many these are field grading plays that just I wasn't able to get the grades I'm looking for. So, this is just my 6 pile. 6. These are just 6s. That's how many field attempts just at trying to get middle grades. When it comes to 5s are just as bad. It's like if they don't know what to give you, they just throw a 5 at you. So 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Brutal. I either hit a 5 or a 6. Trust me. Conditions between those 5s and those 6s vary wildly. Some of them are as beat up, some of them are near mint. It's crazy, but I never was able to get that PR1 and I finally did it. So I am just so happy for that. So that PR1 will now replace that Shadowless 2 because I always want to highlight the lowest grade of my Raichus. So that's a good one. When it comes to Shadowless Raichus, this is my highest grade for Shadowless is a 9, but I finally got the one. I don't own a Shadowless 10. I wish I owned a Shadowless 10, but the highest Shadowless I have is a 9. But So happy. I finally did it. It took me fucking like 6 years to finally grade a 1. That's ridiculous. Of like actively trying to grade ones. So many twos, so many threes, fours, you name it. Just, and like, oh, I'm happy. All right. So that was part of that 35 card submission. So that was pretty exciting. And then there was some like other just, listen, I'm telling you right now, that 35 card submission, because a lot of them were personal collections, so a lot of them were like middle Nintendo era, a lot of like WotC stuff. Really, really makes me not want to grade anything that's not modern, because you get hit with those nines, you get hit with those eights, even for relatively near mint cards, and it's just going from one submission, which is just cards that I plan on flipping on the market, and I could get 70 out of 70 gem mint 10s. And then for my 35 card submission, just get freaking taken out back and really, really giving it to me. So, but yeah, so like that's a little bit of a rant I wanted to do. It's just, I'm now waiting for that 65 card submission. That 65 card submission, there's some liquid gold in there. Cards that I think will move really, really good at Collecticon. But yeah, so that was that. And I know a lot of you guys have been asking about that. A lot of you guys asked about my Raichu collection, because I haven't talked about it in a long time. And a lot of you guys asked about, hopefully I was going to get those submissions back. And it looks like that 65 card submission, it's in QA2. The 70 card submission was actually after the 65 card submission. So it actually leaped at one, which I don't know why PSA does that. I don't know why all three of those submissions all shipped out on the same day. No clue. Very happy. Big, big sigh of relief for me. Now, the next submission I gotta wait for is just that 137 packs from Mr. Jim at Z&G Emporium with that pack rate in play. I will not be able to hit 137 PSA 10s, but if I could hit 30%, I'll do okay. If I could hit 40%, it will be right into the sunset, like, all-time play. But right now, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But, and then also for Charlotte Collecticon, if any guys are going to be there, I am still doing the in-person consignments. I know a few people have reached out to me. There's going to be some pretty cool cards at the table that people are consigning. But if you guys do want to do that, you could go back and for the first 8 minutes of one of my Charlotte Collecticon videos, I talked about all the like stipulations for that. It's pretty simple. But if you want to go back, watch that video. I recommend it if you have any questions for that service. But yeah, guys. It's a good day. It's just a Friday. I just want to take it easy tonight. I hadn't made a video in a couple days, and I started to get antsy. I get antsy if I don't talk about Pokemon enough. I did see that Paradox Rift, they released some of the cards. It looks like it's going to be an overall solid set. Solid isn't the same as great. Like, there was nothing that I saw so far of that set where I was just like, okay, this is going to be the set that saves Scarlet and Violet, block. I think this is going to be the set that everybody's going to want to move into. I didn't really get that feeling. It's a solid set. The problem is Scarlet and Violet base is a solid set. Paldea Evolved is a solid set. Obsidian Flames being a Charizard set, still solid. Paradox Rift, still a solid set. Problem is, 151 is going to be a monster set, and it's going to be a set that a lot of people are really going to try to move into real hard. So, we're getting into this weird, long timeline now of mediocre sets. And you can make the argument about Sword and Shield. Like, think about Sword and Shield. What were the first 4 sets of Sword and Shield? Sword and Shield base, Rebel Trash, Darkness Ablaze, Vivid Voltage. There's a lot of hype for that. Vivid Voltage was peak of peak perfect storm. Like, by the time Vivid Voltage, and before Vivid Voltage was Champion's Path, so like a lot of demand for Champion's Path. Vivid Voltage at release. Vivid Voltage was like one of the last sets that you can do pre-orders for. After Vivid Voltage, pre-orders sort of went the way of the dodo. You could pre-order Vivid Voltage, but nobody was really pre-ordering Vivid Voltage because it didn't really make sense to do that. And then what Vivid Voltage did in that timeline, those prices went all the way up to, there was some sales people say of like 280. I personally never ever saw sales that high, but like that's what people have said. There was definitely a lot of sales at that 220 price range. That is a price that I can definitely say I saw a lot of those sales at 220. Vivid Voltage ETBs went parabolic. They went up to like 140 before 120, 140 before the reprint, and then the booster box reprint killed the price of Vivid Voltage. And then ETB reprint killed the price of those ETBs, and then even Battle Styles had all this demand, and so you can make the argument that Sword and Shield had 4 weaker sets, but the problem is the amount of hype that came into this hobby around the time of Vivid Voltage was absolutely ridiculous. And Vivid Voltage wasn't that bad of a set, you know. When you think about Vivid Voltage, it still had the full art Pikachu, like with the pink background. One of my favorite cards. One of my favorite cards to grade, actually. There was a while recently, like, say recently, within the last 6 months, where I was able to pick up a lot of those cards raw for $10. Like, just picking them up at auction between $10 to $15, grading those things, and they were selling all day. So that was actually, like, a nice play. I really like that card. But then the hyper rare Pikachu was in there. And then, oh my god, why am I spacing? Mason Rares. And then you have the Mason Rare, the 6-card subset. Those cards right at release were really, really expensive. So the expected value in Vivid Voltage right at release was really, really high. And yeah, even had like the full art Leon trainer card. Like there was a lot of cards in Vivid Voltage that were very expensive. Obviously, all that demand has really dried up with the exception of the the VMAX Pikachu, which is still selling pretty strong. And believe it or not, I think that card's actually getting to a point in this hobby where Vivid Voltage isn't really being opened up anymore. And if you believe in Modern, if you believe in the Sword and Shield block, looking at the price that card was selling at, that Vivid Voltage Pikachu was hitting crazy astronomical numbers at the peak of peaks and the booms of booms and the high of highs. But now that card has retraced pretty nicely. So I think we might be getting to what I believe is the floor of that Vivid Voltage Pikachu. And in fact, if we're starting to see price upticks of that Vivid Voltage Pikachu, you can make the argument that we've actually already seen the floor of that card because not as much is being open, but there's still a decent amount of Vivid Voltage on the market. So it might take a little while, but I think we're getting close to that timeline where whatever the bottom of that Pikachu, if you do believe in modern Pokemon, if you do believe in that people are going to want to go back to the Sword and Shield block and they're going to want to relive this, there's not many sets that you can make the argument like people were super attached to in Sword and Shield, because most people, I shouldn't say most people, this is too broad of terms, but a lot of people got in during that Logan Paul end of 2020, and Vivid Voltage was November 2020. That was the set, and it was, it was surrounded by 2 okay sets. Battle Style still introduced alternative arts with that Sleepy Tea and stuff, and there was a lot of hype into Battle Styles, and then yes, a lot of people, even at that time, loved Darkness Ablaze. They loved that VMAX Charizard, and that VMAX Charizard was selling for super inflated prices. And even in PSA 9, that card was selling at $150 for just a VMAX, because that's the problem with Darkness Ablaze, is Darkness Ablaze never had that real chase. Again, VMAX Charizard is a chase, but it's not a real chase. It's just a VMAX. They didn't have like this super hard to attain, super unobtainable pull rates for some crazy alternative art like we did see later in Sword and Shield block when like Evolving Skies came out, and you started to see what the pull rates were in order to like actually pull the card you want. Shout out to Rattle Pokemon. In order for Rattle to pull the Moonbreon, he had to open up like 3,700 packs of a set to pull the one card. And I think the thing, we will talk about those Rattle openings for a very long time and like how crazy and how hard it was to open. But let's not make a mistake. Even though it took him 3,700 packs to open that Moonbreon, he never pulled the Rayquaza. Yes, you heard that correctly. The Rayquaza Alt-Art from Evolving Skies, he never pulled that card. So in like an alternate universe, instead of him trying to chase that Moonbreon, he was trying to chase the Rayquaza Alt-Art. And guess what? He never pulled it. So that means he would have the potential have continued opening up hundreds upon hundreds of more packs in order to get that Rayquaza. So that was the ultimate chase. That ultimate impossible to pull. Darkness Ablaze never had that. Rebel Trash never really had that. Sword and Shield Base never really had that. Going into Cosmic Eclipse and stuff, Cosmic Eclipse did have it. Cosmic Eclipse, I think it was 236 cards just in the base set, not including all the rainbow rares, including like the alt-art, not reimagined, just like the alt-arts and all the secret rares and stuff for Cosmic Eclipse. Cosmic Eclipse was a damn near impossible set to actually complete on your own. In fact, probably one of the most daunting sets in all of Pokemon. And it's crazy to think about. Cosmic Eclipse was one of the most daunting sets. The same way as like Fusion Strike was a daunting set. If you wanted to open Fusion Strike to actually get all the hits, how big Fusion Strike was, how many hits were in Fusion Strike, it's almost in a way mathematically. I mean, I guess mathematically it's possible, but financially it becomes an impossibility in order to do that just opening packs. And then, before Cosmic Eclipse, and you go when you start talking about Unified Minds and Unbroken Bond and Team Up, like these were all big sets too. So these later sets did carry a lot of these timelines. So Sun and Moon, those later four sets and then there was like those middle of the road. See, Sun and Moon, even with like Celestial Storms in there, Lost Thunder's in there, like in the middle. Lost Thunder is one of the most underrated sets in all of Sun and Moon, in my opinion. I think Lost Thunder is just an amazing set. Obviously, like there's a Lugia in Lost Thunder, but the Mimikyu in Lost Thunder, Chef Kiss, love it. Rookie card for Mimikyu, which is a Gen 7 Pokemon, which has become one of my favorite Pokemon just because of all the awesome artworks that Mimikyu has had. My favorite Mimikyu artwork is actually, we talked about Cosmic Eclipse, is in Cosmic Eclipse, that Mimikyu peeking around the tree. My favorite artwork, and then just so many good Mimikyu artworks. But yeah, so you had those middle of the road Sun and Moon sets, but yeah, those later ones with that team up, Unbroken Bonds, Unified Minds, Cosmic Eclipse, and then it's the same thing with Sword and Shield. Those late Sword and Shield sets, and Evolving Skies might not have had, like the character rare subsets to it, but Evolving Skies still had all the Umbreons, great chases, and then going into Brilliant Stars, Brilliant Stars, Astral Radiance, Silver Tempest, all those sets, solid. I don't know, it's going to be tough to say. Well, I'll be curious what happens with Scarlet and Violet, because these first four sets aren't really doing it for me. I know it's still early with Paradox Rift. We've only seen a couple of the leaks, but nothing's really like a showstopper for me. Like even all these Scarlet and Violet sets, there was nothing in any of these Scarlet and Violet sets. Like if you like the Iono, okay. If you like the Miriam, okay. But I'm not really like into the waifus, so those cards don't really do it for me. Even, being a Charizard set, having Obsidian Flames, the Charizards for it didn't do it for me. Like, I like the silver one opposed to the gold one, but it seems like those pull rates aren't impossible. They're very attainable, and I don't know. I've grown to like that Charizard artwork more. Like when I saw it for the first time, and we saw that gold Charizard get leaked super, super early on, and people were saying, I think this card is fake. And then a lot of people that were just like looking, even though it was a photo taken on a potato, and I don't know why some of the leaked photos always look like they're taken on potatoes, but they always are. But anybody that looked at those real early leaks of that gold Charizard from Obsidian Flames, we were all like, no, that looks like a real card. And I think that's going to be the chase of the set, and then it ended up being it. And when I saw it for the first time, I was like, oh god, what is this? This is stupid hat on. Like, what is this supposed to be? Like a crystal type? I don't even know what it's supposed to be. And then it came out, and I was still like, meh. But now I'm actually starting to enjoy that Charizard a little more. But the problem is I think that one, the hobby as a whole is just Charizard fatigued. Like, you name it. I mean, how many Charizards have we had in the last 10 years? I mean, I couldn't even, I don't even want to start to count them because there's so many of them. So I think the hobby as a whole is just kind of going through that Charizard fatigue mentality. And, you can make it like, the third sets have always been Charizard sets lately. So you got, Charizard set and Obsidian Flames. You got Darkness Ablaze is a Charizard set, and then Burning Shadows is a Charizard set, but Burning Shadows isn't the third set, is it? So, but either way, third or fourth set is a Charizard set. And then all the Charizards that get pumped out in every other set, like Brilliant Stars is a Charizard set. Brilliant Stars is the Sword and Shield's version of like XY Flashfire. The same way Flashfire, that was a Charizard set through and through. Charizard carried that set. Flashfire being one of the, most sought after sets of an entire timeline of that XY. Flashfire, and then Phantom Forces is right up there. Phantom Forces has that ghost type Pokemon, your Gengar, stuff like that. But, usually Charizards stand out. They become these great sets. And, Burning Shadows definitely got overpassed by those later Sun and Moon sets, like hands down. But removing those later Sun and Moon sets, Burning Shadows was super strong, and then Darkness Ablaze was just weak. I think it's just that very much Charizard burnout. And you want Pokemon. It's like, Pokemon, what are you doing? You got so many Pokemon out there. Why do you keep going back to just these few? And in a way, I'm not stupid. Like, I get it. Charizard sell products. They do. Charizard UPCs right at release. Don't don't sit there and pretend like you don't remember what Charizard UPC pre-orders were selling at $300+. Charizard sell products. Charizard sells sets. Charizards will always be the most expensive cards in most sets. It's harder to find sets where the Charizard, when there's a Charizard chase in a set, where that Charizard is not the most expensive card versus finding a set where there's like a chase Charizard and it's not the most expensive. It's way easier to find a set and say, okay, does it have a Charizard? Is it Charizard a chase? That's the most expensive. I don't even need to know what else is in there. And there's just so many sets, and then so many sets that are just so dominated by how much greater value the Charizard has than anything else in that. You know, even like, I'm not going to, I mean, we could do it. We could go through them, but I don't really want to. But going all the way back to WotC, like, base set, Charizard's easily most expensive. Team Rocket, most expensive. Base set 2, most expensive. And then Blaine's Charizard, most expensive. Crystal Charizard from Skyridge, most expensive. It just, you go through all the sets, all the timelines, you know, all the way till you get the Diamond Pro and you start to look at your Stormfronts and you got the Secret Rare Charizard, most expensive. It's just all the way until you get to modern sets, until you get to Obsidian Flames and you have that Chase Charizard, most expensive card in the set. But I just think people are getting a little tired of that, a little burned out. It's just like, okay, we get it. We got 100+ Charizards that exist. Give us something else. And the question is, can other cards carry sets? I think a card a lot of people were asking for was like, give us a big Chase Lugia. And I think a lot of people were talking about that because, especially if you're more the Gen 2 fan, Lugia is going to be probably that Chase for you, you know? And when you think about Lugia, we did get that Lugia chase when it came to Silver Tempest, and it actually was a very beautiful artwork. I'm curious to see what happens with all those God Box tins. So I actually picked up 2 of them. From 2 different targets, I picked up tins. I'm going to pre-record a couple of videos just so when I'm away at Charlotte Collecticon, they'll be released. So I'm going to open up those. And I'm curious. I've seen a lot of Lugia alt arts be pulled in the last month because of those God tins. I will be, and all those cards that get pulled, I don't think we're seeing the effects on the market yet, especially when it comes to the graded card market. Maybe the single market will start to see it, but I don't even know if people are really doing that as a single play. I think more people, more likely than not, are going to do that as a grading play. And if you're doing a grading play, we might not see the effects of that for 2, 3, 4 months down the line, especially if people are just cheap. They want to send them at bulk, pay their $15, wait a couple months, get those back. If those Lugias from Silver Tempest, like, do flood the market for, like, a short amount of time, people might actually get good buying opportunities for that Lugia alt art from Silver Tempest in the near future. Now, if that doesn't happen, and, you know, we do see a big supply of these Lugia alt arts from all those God tins, but we don't see a direct, like, correlation, like cause and effect on the market, and we don't see that price retrace, that is a super strong indicator for how good of a set Silver Tempest is. And if we do see that happen, and you don't see any sort of downtick in the market from those Lugia alt arts, that would make me super, super bullish on Silver Tempest. It'd be like, look at all these cards that just recently hit the market, and we see no effect. That would be a very strong indicator for me as Silver Tempest being a super strong buy for me. But, just real quick, I looked down. Mr. Wallace says, people forget the Chase Fossil Muck. Muck would have been more of a chase if it was not in the theme decks. I think that's the problem. Some of those older cards, if they were in the theme deck, it really, like, hurt them for the long run. Even base set, like, Overgrowth theme decks with the Gyarados, really hurt it. Blackout theme decks with the Hitmonchan, really hurt it. Zap theme decks with the base set Mewtwo, really hurt it. Ninetales is in Brushfire. The Brushfire theme decks really hurt those Ninetales, and like those 4 cards in a way are always slightly tainted. And then don't get me talked about like the Machamp, like first edition Machamp, and how many of those first edition Machamps exist. I think the numbers I've heard in the past where there was 2 million of those 2-player starter decks with the first edition Machamps. So 2 million of those cards in theory exist. I have a couple of them sealed right back there, so that's a couple that exist. So, but yeah, those 5 cards really, like when you look at what base set does, and like you look at the poor performing cards, like those are always them. But then you still have like the Poliwrath, and the Poliwrath, everybody really just hates Poliwrath, and that's not in the theme deck. People would rather have the Gyarados, or rather have the Hitmonchan, or the Ninetales, or the Mewtwo. So maybe that's not like a complete honest answer either, but there's some really actually cool like theme deck promotion cards. You have to kind of go to the later, and then like, so what I mean by it is the ones that really stick out is just like, I love the Legendary Collection theme decks, and the reason why is because like the Lava theme deck has the non-hollowed Charizard in it, and then what's the other, is it Turmoil is the, yeah, so you got the Lava theme deck from Legendary Collection and the Turmoil theme deck with the non-hollow Raichu in it. That non-hollow Raichu also is the Dark Raichu, so the secret rare from Team Rocket, 83 out of 82, is also in Legendary Collection, but it's in the theme decks, in the Turmoil. It's the only way you could get that card in a non-hollow. And then in the regular just opening packs, you can get that Dark Raichu in both reverse hollow and hollow. But it's the only way you could get it, like I said, in that non-hollow is from those theme decks. And it's the same thing with the Charizard. You know, when you think of Legendary Collection, you think of those reverse hollows and you think of that firework pattern. The one card that probably sticks out in everybody's mind is Fireworks Reverse Hollow Charizard from Legendary Collection. $10,000+ card. Even the hollow Charizard from Legendary Collection, super tough to grade. Shout out to Cool Train Orion. I think when Cool Train Orion graded his hollow Charizard from Legendary Collection, he made it into a pop 3. That's going back a few years, but it's still a very tough card to grade. But that's why that Lava theme deck was cool, because it was different. Like, that's the only way you can get those cards. So I always like that. So theme decks are not always bad. And then, you know, when you got later into it, and especially like in some of the Heart Gold, Soul Silver timelines and stuff, and when Pokemon, I'd probably just say when Pokemon introduced cracked ice hollows, and then it was like, it really gave you a reason to go after, and okay, now I really have a reason to chase after these theme deck variants of these hollows, because one, cracked ice hollows, awesome hollow pattern, but number 2, it's the only way you're going to get those hollow or cracked ice hollows is you're going to have to do the theme deck. So when Pokemon introduced that was actually like a chase too. So that was a long-winded rant just because you said muck hollow. So all right, I'm going to scroll up. I want to talk for a little while. I don't want to make this like a super long live. I appreciate all you guys hopping in on Friday night. Hope you guys have a good weekend too. But yeah, we're going to answer a bunch of questions. Jade Rabbit, good to see you. Namp90. I hope you guys have been following Namp. I recommended you guys a while back to follow his Instagram. I know some of you guys have followed him. A lot of you have joined. Namp90, and then also show your support to #1 mod in the game, Drew. I see Drew's in here. Professor Oak. I heard Professor Oak was sick the other day. Professor Oak, buddy, I hope you are feeling good. You're really going to be missed in Charlotte. Professor Oak, it's not too late. You can still make it. You just have to. Professor Oak, I'm talking to you right now. You just believe it in your heart of hearts right now. If you really want to make it to Charlotte Collecticon, you could do it. I believe in you. Do it. You can make it. I think there's a lot of people who like to see you. Mr. Walrus says, question, the hobby seems too inclusive and welcoming. What can we all do to change that? Whew. Well, I guess we could stop making hour-plus long lives where we just talk about the nuances of the hobby and talk about plays and talk about new releases and talk about, you know, what are we grading, what are we buying, what do we think about reprints, what do we think is not going to get reprinted. I think if we really want to stop making this hobby welcoming, we could start to stop making all this type of content. Leaf Green Goblin said, damn, PK going live to flex. Not going live to flex. Going live to just say, thank God. Laz says, congrats on the 10s PK. Yeah, 70 out of 70 on one of my submissions. That is an all-time record. It was old maids, though, so a lot of old maids in that 70 out of 70, but it's still 10, so it doesn't matter. A 10 is a 10 no matter how you spin it. Fresh Tat says, did Nat grade your cards? No, but I hope Nat grades my packs. When Nat came on the channel. Yeah, so a lot of people were like, oh, PK gave Nat Turner all these questions ahead of time, and like Nat had all these planned out questions. There were no, like, I didn't hand him any questions, and he definitely didn't know that the graded pack question was coming. So, and that was like huge on my list. I was like, okay, let's get the answer from him. Let's get him to say that, you know, pack grading scales haven't changed or anything. And it wasn't the perfect answer, but he gave an answer. And I will tell you what, going into that, and if anybody's watching this after the fact or real time and you don't know what I'm talking about, I have an interview. You probably go back 10 or so videos, just scroll down on my lives, and you'll see an interview with Nat Turner, President and CEO of PSA. Yes, PSA grading. If you haven't watched that video, definitely go back and watch it. Like, if you're going to ask me my opinion, if to tell you to watch one video on my channel, that's going to be the one video I tell you to watch. But super good dude. I feel really comfortable with who's leading the ship at PSA right now. And he hasn't been at PSA for that long. Like, the Collectors Group just bought that PSA in 2020. So when they bought or was it early 2021? When they bought PSA, they also inherited a 10 million card backlog. And through Nat's leadership and through Collector's leadership, they were able to knock down that huge 10 million card backlog. And, you know, they had to make decisions that I thought were going to be tough, where they had to shut down and not accept any cards. And Nat phrased it a great way. He said that was actually the easiest decision he ever made, that there was just no way that they could keep accepting cards, because then you can't just keep turnaround times at a year plus forever. You just can't do it. So you have to turn off that. If you have a leak or if you have your water spout just pouring out, the only way to stop it is you just got to close the valve and just say, okay, no more. And they did that. And all of the questions I asked him, all his answers, I thought they were great. And I'm looking forward. And if you guys don't know this, it is an annual interview now. So I've already had like commitment from him that it's going to be an annual thing. So we did it July of this year. So probably sometime next year, plus or minus a month. So between June and August of next year, Nat will come on again and we'll be able to have another interview with him. And yeah, it's a year's timeline in between interviews. Is that a long time? Yeah, but is it though? It's probably not that crazy. There's a lot of people that have been guests on my channel and will probably have longer breaks from them coming on to the next time they come up of greater than a year. And to get Nat, somebody at PSA, there was a lot of information that was released in that live that a lot of people don't know. And it's pretty cool too. There's a lot of people did breakdowns of that live, not in Pokemon though. There was a lot of sports channels that broke down that interview, and it was pretty wild. Like, I must have I know I have a very small channel, but we're on the road to the magic number 6,969 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. But a lot of the breakdowns of my Nat Turner interview, the view counts were well over 10,000 views on those videos. I was just like, oh, okay. So the breakdowns have way more views than my actual interview. So I always got like a good laugh out of that. But it's funny too, like the stuff that the sports card hobby enthusiasts, the things that they were kind of like zoning in on that interview. And it makes sense too. And it was interesting to like kind of listen to those videos and hear like a little bit of the dichotomy between different collectible hobbies. Like, you would think Pokemon and trading cards games are very similar. And you can make that argument that they are. They're both cards. They're both encapsulated the same way. You're going to grade them similar. Like, there's a lot of crossover there. But the collector bases can't really be any further apart. And like what people their value opposed to what Pokemon people value and stuff, it's interesting. So to hear their thoughts, to hear their insights on that interview was like fascinating. And I recommend you guys going out and just typing into YouTube, looking out those breakdowns and like hear what those people had to say. It's pretty fascinating stuff. Drew said, hell yes on the Raichus. Yes, I finally got my PR1. Big day. To quote Cool Trainer Ryan, doing big things on the motherfucking channel. That's right. Let's see. Leaf Green Goblin said, sneeze on the card and leave it in the sun, yeah. Pokelips says, I just hit a Pop 1 PR1 fossil Japanese haunter. You want to hear about plays in the hobby? PR1s are plays. If Josh, the old card shop, is out there, sorry, buddy, if I blew up your play, but that is PR1s are a true play. I know it sounds stupid, and I will admit it sounds stupid, but ones hold strong premiums, and they are in fact like some of the more liquid cards that I ever own. When I get PR1s in, which that Raichu is not for sale. Some people like to say I'm gonna get buried with my collection. Guys, remember, bury me with that PR1 Raichu. That I value that card way above any 10s or any high grades. That one, that is the go-to. The first ever one. That has been my Moby Dick, my white whale in this hobby, is to grade a Raichu in a 1, and I finally did it. Now, the things that I think I'll never be able to do is that 1.5, 2.5. I do have a 3.5, but it's like not even a PSA 3.5. I have a SGC 3.5, so to grade those subgrades, that 1.5, 2.5, that might never even happen because, like, while, yes, PSA does have those grades for Pokemon, they never seem to give them. That's why I have all these 5s and no 5.5s. I think I don't even have a 5.5. Wait, maybe I do. Oh, I got a 4.5 CGC. I don't think I have. Oh, I got a 4.5 and a 6.5. So, and then obviously all these half grades are gonna have to be CGC because you got to jump them up. But yeah, I don't even have a 5.5. So, yeah, those are going to be the ones that are just going to probably just be the daunting ones. All these random half grades, and I don't think I even have a 7.5. I don't. Yeah, those will be the ones. That will be the death of me trying to complete this master set. Let's see. Mr. Waller said, Drew, are you real? Drew is very much a real person. Yeah, that's why he is the ultimate #1 mod in the game. So Steve C. said, this handsome devil went from Bud Light to White Claw. I did go from Bud Light to White Claw. It's a Bud Light free household now, but I'm drinking White Claws, being as basic as I can. But Steve C., I do appreciate the handsome comment. That just like splashed up. Jade Rabbit says, all of Scarlet and Violet are all solid sets. People just don't have as much disposable income at the moment. That's liable to change though. Yeah, we'll see. Well, I don't even know if it's that people don't have the disposable income so much, or if it's just people are maybe just focusing on other things in the hobby. And I mean, this hobby is fluid, right? So maybe people are just buying singles at the time. Maybe people, because why we are sealed collectors, and a lot of people out there are sealed collectors, I would say the vast majority of this hobby are not really sealed collectors per se, as they are just people that go after that chase, that pack opening experience. And you do that pack opening experience set after set, release after release for the last, 3-4 years that some people have been back into the hobby. You do that. Eventually, it's going to catch up to you, and eventually you're going to realize, like, maybe I shouldn't do this every single set. So there could be a little bit of like trickling where people are just saying, okay, I'm just going to buy the card I want, because while that card might inherently be a little bit more money than, say, the cost of a pack, the amount of money they're going to save is just astronomical. So maybe a little bit of that, like people not having as much disposable income, that I'm not really sure about. Rumbum92 says, hey PK, glad I got out to a Collecticon. So did you go to a Collecticon, or are you coming to Charlotte? Because if you're coming to Charlotte, I'm looking forward to meeting everybody. And I've said it a million times. If during the event you guys come up to me and I can't really talk to you, do not take it personal. I'm just going to be there to sell cards. But after the event, trade nights, stuff like this, feel free to reach out to me. If you guys are there by yourself, you show up to Collecticon and you're like, after the event, like, I don't even have anybody to eat dinner with. Just come up to my table, be like, PK, where are you and the guys going after for dinner? I'll be like, oh, we're going to this pizza restaurant, or we're going to this restaurant. Feel free to join. Like, don't feel like You got to come to Charlotte. You don't know anybody, and then you walk around the whole time and you don't interact with anybody. Maybe the only people you know are some of the people that are the content creators that have tables, because maybe you're familiar with YouTube channels, but you don't really know anybody else in the hobby. Come up, ask me. Just be like, PK, where are you guys going out for dinner? And I'll tell you. And guess what? You're invited. Everybody's invited. I'm not going to pay for your food, but you're invited. So, and then if you don't know where the trade nights or anything are, ask me. I I haven't done any of the research, so I don't know where the trade nights are going to be per se, like say Saturday night or Sunday night, but they're always somewhere. And we will know like day of the event. Don't worry about that. So even if I don't know today, I will know on the Saturday, the day of event. So just come up, be like, hey PK, do you know anything about the trade night? Who's hosting it? Where's it at? Is there a cover? Is it free? Is it open bar? Is it free food? Like some of these trade nights, they're, sponsored. So they'll have like food and giveaways and prizes. Other times they're just like somebody in the community. Like I know like Don Diego does a lot of different trade nights and stuff. So those aren't really sponsored. They're just kind of you show up with your cards or whatever you want to trade and you sit there and you could trade. Or I don't even bring cards personally to a trade night because I'm there more for the social interaction of the trade night. And I like to look at other people's cards and, if I want to buy something, maybe I will. But I'm more there to just sit down, have a drink. The people at the end of the night, you'll see like that room is a huge room usually. So you'll have like maybe 100+ people in the trade night, but as the night keeps ticking down and then the people keep scattering out and people are going to sleep and stuff, and you watch as all the tables, they start to shrink until eventually at the end of the night you just have like this one huge table, and then the conversations that take place at that one table are the conversations you'll never see on a YouTube video, you'll never see in private or in public discords. Like that is when the true deepness of this hobby really shows itself, because all the stuff that is kind of talked about behind closed doors in a way, or like maybe not in a negative way. Like don't say like, oh, this is like a gatekeeping type of way, where it's like, no, where you're talking about like, oh yeah, I know this guy. Yeah, he bought this trophy card. He bought this snap card. He bought this. This is what he paid for it. How did your business do last year? These are the dollar amounts my businesses did. Like, like that, those sort of numbers, those are the conversations that get taken. So where you might know the price that somebody bought a card for, you're not going to share that in like a super public forum, because that's not your information to share. But like if you're sharing it with like people really deep down the rabbit hole, like people talk, and it's, unless somebody flat out asks you like, hey, do not tell anyone this price, then that you can't talk about that. But if people are like, yeah, just like don't go tell everyone, there's a difference there between don't go tell everybody versus like don't tell anyone at all. There's a big difference there. But like those type of conversations I have. So, and the later in the night you could stick around, if you can make it to that real late, there's some spice that goes on there. And you hear the real numbers too. There's numbers that people talk about that they are sales, and then there's the real numbers. The real numbers are usually far out surpass anything that anybody says publicly. And when you hear the real numbers, it will really, when people say that like I am bearish on the hobby, or people say that like Dan Catch 'em All Collectibles is bearish, or Jake, or anybody who's like preaches caution, but anybody who says that these guys are bearish, when you know the true numbers, the truest of numbers, they are not bearish at all. Like it is deep, like belly laugh when people say that, when you really know the numbers. And when you really know the numbers, you're like, yeah, bearish my ass. Like, but that's the thing, like people just love people's finances too. Like people just would like, show me your finances. It's like all that shit that happened with Gary King Pokemon, where people were like, Gary, show us your tax returns. And it's like, nobody's going to show you their tax returns. Like, find something else to complain about in this hobby except for other people's freaking taxes. There's a lot of things you can nitpick people on in this hobby. There's plenty of it. But their personal taxes, find something else to attack people on. Like, everybody has their faults, but taxes, come on. But, yeah, that was see, I titled this video good. Old-fashioned PK rants. That's what these are. They're just Old fashions. Nothing like an old fashioned, isn't that right, Randy Marsh? Jade Rabbit says, I mean, seriously, Obsidian Flame, a Charizard set doing mediocre. 2 years ago, you wouldn't even be able to pick it up if it was around. 2 years ago? Hell no. People would be talking about Obsidian Flames like it was the godsend of all Pokemon sets. They would talk about it as the rebirth of Flashfire. Like, the newest, greatest thing. This will be the set that everybody looks back on in 10, 15 years from now and talks about this as being one of the greatest sets Pokemon ever made. Yeah, if this was released 2 years ago. The problem is we're just not in that climate of Pokemon anymore. So, Turbo58 says, opinion on Poncho Eevees. If you get them at a good price, pick them up. I love fan favorite Pokemon, beautiful artworks, especially Japanese exclusives. Do it. Poncho Eevees, Poncho Pikachus, solid. Typhlosion Collector says, Vivid Voltage, Amazing Rares were cool until they weren't. A bingo. You remember it was like, I wonder if... And listen, Amazing Rares, I'm gonna say this, and I mean this. Amazing Rares had awesome artworks. That graffiti style, like the busting out of the flames, like reminiscent of like a Gold Star type of artwork where the Pokemon is busting out of the frames. Beautiful, textured to them. Amazing Rares, awesome cards. The Pokemon they chose to, like Celebi, Jirachi, Rayquaza. I mean, there was some solid Amazing Rare Pokemon in Vivid Voltage, and it just... when they are two a box, or potentially potentially 1 to 2 Amazing Rares per box, and they stop being rare, and prices of, I want to say for a while, Amazing Rares dropped sub $1. I don't know if the prices are still sub $1. I'm going to guess they probably ticked up a little bit, but I don't know. And the fact that those are like one of the quote unquote chases of Vivid Voltage, and they became sub $1 card for amazing artwork, just kind of shows that a lot of people just kind of move on to the next best, next shiniest thing in this hobby. Mr. Walrus says, question, thoughts on penny sleeves no longer being a penny but retaining the name? Mr. Walrus, where are you buying your penny sleeves? Because I can tell you for a fact they are definitely still a penny. So you just gotta open up your horizons and see where you're picking them up. Same thing with, like, here you go, perfect example. Card Saver 1s. Cardboard Gold. How do you buy your Card Saver 1s? Do you buy your Card Saver 1s on eBay? Are you buying them in lots of 50? Hope not. Are you buying them in lots of 200? Okay. Or are you going on cardboardgold.com? When they're not sold out, are you waiting for them and you're picking them up in cases of 2,000? If you're picking up your Card Saver 1s in cases of 2,000, you're doing it the right way. You're picking up for the absolute lowest. And then Card Saver 1 for a while, it was probably about, God, it had to have been about 7 months back where they had that huge 10% discount. So then you could pick up your 2,000 Card Saver 1s plus 10% discount. Super cheap. I think it broke down to like, is it like, fuck, I don't remember. I don't want to like say the wrong numbers, but was it like 4 or 6 cents per Card Saver 1? So there's definitely, anyways, when it comes back to penny sleeves, you could definitely still pick up penny sleeves for $1. You just got to be buying in bulk. And same thing with Card Saver 1s. Always recommend you buying in bulk. And Card Saver 1s is probably one of those things that on my eBay, I should just always post like 200 Card Saver 1s. The problem is I ran out of Card Saver 1s a while ago, and I don't really want to like run out again. So, TKK Collector says, we mastered Fusion, but we ended up having to buy like $600 in singles after opening 6 booster boxes and a Canadian God box. I really hope late Scarlet and Violet has the chase. Yeah, that's a lot that you spent on Fusion Strike and then still having to pick up a bunch of extra singles. So, Mr. Walrus says, question, what is your favorite rock and why is it Dwayne Johnson? It is not. My favorite rock is out of Cummington, Massachusetts, and the name of the rock is Coming Tonight. You hear that? That's the name of the rock. Coming Tonight. Google it. Coming Tonight. That's my favorite rock. if you didn't see, it's like the more you know. Everybody, you learn something. If you learn one new thing today, you learn that coming tonight is a rock. And that will now hopefully become your new favorite rock. Let's see. Mr. Wallace says, people hated on the long neck Raiku's, like the original design was any good. Oh, come on. Original Raichu is a solid Pokemon. The giraffe necks, I'm not all about that. But listen, I will say this once. I don't like any new Pokemon ever. It takes me a while to enjoy it. Mimikyu, I did enjoy right at release. But most Pokemon, when it comes to new Pokemon, it always takes me a while to enjoy them. Same thing with, like even going back to go back to Diamond and Pearl. Piplup is one of my favorite starters because of like the relationship Dawn had with Piplup in season 10 of the anime. How Piplup was like always this like super angry Pokemon, and he was always trying, but he was still very inexperienced, but he had the heart. So when Piplup was first introduced, I didn't really care for Piplup until I like started to watch the anime, that season 10 Diamond and Pearl, and started to see like, okay, I really like Piplup. I really like Dawn. Like, that was a good character arc for those two. So, even, like, new generations of Pokemon, while I might not love them at the beginning, I definitely grow to enjoy them, like, later on. And it's the same thing with, like, Scorbunny. Even, like, for last generation, for Gen 8, Scorbunny, Sobble, Grookey. Like, when they were all introduced, I was just like, meh. Like, Scorbunny kind of looked cute in a way, but I was like, I don't know. We'll see how it comes. And then now that they've been out for a whole generation, it's like, now I like them. But you know what? I'm a stubborn, grumpy old man. That's what happens. You just become like a stubborn, grumpy old man. You don't like anything new until it stops being as new, and then eventually you come around to it. Last Swambo says, do we think there will be another Shining set, and will the chase be another shiny Crown Head Charizard? There will definitely be a Shining set that comes out in the future, for sure. Oh, jumped all the way to the bottom. Let's see. Oh my god, the chat's going crazy tonight. So Cheval says, Arbok backwards is Cobra, Ekans backward is Snake, therefore Muck is cancelled because it's cum. Love it. Cheval's comment of the night right there, my friend. Biggie Mon Legend says, I'm not a fan of the art of Obsidian Flame's Charizards. I wouldn't be disappointed if I pulled them, but not excited for them. I think that's the thing. Listen, people always be excited for pull a Charizard. Doesn't matter if I say this all the time. Doesn't matter if you're a kid pulling a Charizard. Doesn't matter if you're an adult pulling a Charizard. Everybody loves to pull a Charizard. But yeah, no, I hear you. Leaf Green Goblin said, super long live. It's not going to be that long. It'll probably just end pretty soon. I'm trying to work my way to the bottom of the chat, but you guys are typing too much. Drew posted a link for my eBay. I haven't really been posting anything to my eBay just because now that I'm getting all these returns back, I'm going to bring a lot of these cards down to Charlotte, and then anything that doesn't sell, I'll probably list on my eBay. What I think I'm going to do is, because I have my other eBay accounts, I think eventually I'm just going to not completely shut those off, but eventually just stop listing to those, because there was a while I was trying to list 5 cards to each of my eBay every single day, so it was like 15 cards per day on different eBays, and it was just, you run out of cards pretty quick when it's 15 cards, especially where I just talked about for my submissions, 35 cards, 21 cards, 65 cards, and 70 cards. When you're doing 15 cards a day, while that might be like close to 200 cards, it goes pretty quick when it's 15 cards a day. Like, so then I was starting to say like, oh, what do I want to list and stuff? So, Mr. Wallace says, PK, can I be the guest when I'm CEO? Beck, of course you can. Mr. Wallace, you can be the guest anytime you want. So Drew Lavender says, Professor Oak did a game night with all the PK mods on his channel last year. You can see Drew is real. Yes. There is a video out there that does exist of a face reveal for #1 mod in the game. So So Mason Berry said Paldea Evolved has 26 cards in the set over the cost of a single booster pack. That is good. I don't know if I Mason Berry brings up a good point. 26 cards over the price of a booster box or booster pack, but I don't know if a metric that I like a little bit more than cards worth more than the price of a pack is I like the metric of cards worth $20 or greater. Because any card worth $20 and greater, it's really worth it to sell. Like, if you got a card that's worth $5, is it worth it to sell? Yes, no, kinda, maybe. Those middle of the road cards are just the margins, especially with shipping and everything. For Mason, fantastic. Mason's a game store. He can sell, cheaper singles all day, every day. Built out TCG players, built out eBay businesses, stuff like this. For the average person, anything sub $20, while there is definitely margins to be made, there's definitely meat on the bone. I'm not doing that play. I know a lot of other people are not really doing that play. It's the same way as the bulk route. Listen, if you're a bulk seller, you will make money. There's no doubt about it. I know a lot of bulk sellers. I've had a lot of bulk sellers on this channel, and I'm talking the bulk of bulk. Like, you're buying 10,000 bulk and you're searching through it. Shout out to Mile High Pokemon. Him and his fiance, that's what they do. They sit down. He pretty much buys up all the bulk that exists. Mile High Pokemon, Mile High being Colorado being Denver. So he buys up all the bulk around Denver. Everybody just brings it to him right in person. I think he was paying like $1.50 last time. But like, him and his fiance, they just sit there and they go through the bulk. And there's money to be made there, I promise you. That is a lot of work. And there's a lot of people won't do that work. So it's, now, that 26 cards greater than $5, there's definitely more people willing to do that work, but I still like that $20 price point. It's just kind of like an arbitrary baseline for cards that are really worth it, because usually those cards greater than $20 are also cards that are worth it to be graded, and because those are a little bit more of the things that I do in this hobby, so there's definitely 100% a lot of bias that's coming from this answer. Let's see. Mason Berry said, Collecticons are to meet people. That's the whole point. That is a huge point. 100%. Well, that and make money. That's also a point, but... So Mr. Wallace says, y'all better be ready for Dan's real life conversations on Celebrations Art. So I'm going to give you something about Dan. Even when you talk to Dan in person, you could be on a one-on-one conversation. You could be, I don't know. You could be at your local Taco Bell getting tacos together, and Dan will start talking to you about finances. And Dan, in your real life conversation on a one-on-one at your local Taco Bell, ordering your tacos, he's getting a quesadilla, and during that conversation, Dan will say, "This is not tax advice." He will use that exact line. That's just Dan. That is Dan in real life. The same Dan you know on YouTube, Mr. Tax Advice himself, he's the same person in real life. And I've watched him do that. And it was so apparent when he did it. Like, everybody at the table, we kind of like stopped and we were like, oh my God, that was like the first time I really met Dan in person. We were like, oh my God, he actually does it when he's just talking. Dan will be playing bear pong. This isn't tax advice. Like, those are the conversations Dan has. Yeah. So people are saying Rattle at Collecticon. Rattle will be there. I'm going to have to pay for Rattle to get a bodyguard or something. Maybe the Secret Service or something. We'll get Rattle a little bodyguard detail. Especially, I wonder if Rattle just goes and hangs out around the Whatnot booth the whole time. Do you think it? I think Rattle that's all he does the whole Collecticon. He's just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to hang out by all the Whatnot guys. Just watching all the breaks, looking over everybody's shoulders. Just, chirping in the background. That would be amazing if somebody could get Rattle to do a Whatnot break. Mason Berry said, you can buy Card Savers direct, ? Bro, Mason, you gotta be joking, right? Like, Mason, go to cardboardgold.com and buy your Card Saver ones. Did I just, is that a secret? Do it, Mason. Look at how much it costs for 2,000 card saver ones. Mr. Walrus says, haha, I got 2,000 card savers delivered today. I can never tell if Mr. Walrus is trolling or not, but if he did, that's awesome, man. Mr. Walrus says, geologists sound more like geodudes. Okay, Cheval, sorry. Mr. Walrus just stole your comment of the night, and Mr. Walrus now has the comment of the night with geologists sound more like geodudes. I love it. Kevin Clare said, Piplup cute as fuck. Yes. Hands down. Alright. Sweet. Listen, guys. I did it. My goal is to go for an hour. I made it an hour and 33 minutes. It kind of made it to the bottom of the chat. I know I skipped a couple questions. But guys, listen, I appreciate you. We're on the road to 6,969 subscribers. If you like this content, if you enjoy this content, and you haven't hit the subscribe button, please hit that subscribe button. Help me get to that milestone. Once I get to that milestone, that's it. It's just, that's the end. Not the end of the channel. That's just the end of my subscriber goal. And then it's just, we could just go into the future together, and then whatever happens, happens. But that has been the goal since day one, and it's still the goal. But, yeah, guys, as always, appreciate every single one of you. I truly mean that. If you are going to be at Charlotte Collecticon, again, I'm vending cards in person, so feel free to drop off your cards to me if you want me to sell any for you. But as always, appreciate every one of you, and I'll catch you on the next video.